I'm Ian Hemphill, also known as Herbie, and I'm going to talk to you about herbs and spices. Now today I'm standing in front of a cinnamon tree, and everybody's pretty familiar with cinnamon, but a lot of people don't realise that cinnamon is actually made from the underneath layer of bark that's peeled from branches cut from young cinnamon trees. Now this bale of cinnamon quills has got quite an interesting history because they've been producing cinnamon like this for thousands of years. Every cinnamon quill that you see, so ones that are like this, about a metre long, are all made by hand. And the process begins by taking branches from cinnamon trees that are around about this diameter and about a metre long. And the first step in the process is to scrape off the outer layer of bark. That is then discarded and put to one side. Then this stick is rubbed with a brass rod to bruise the underneath layer of bark. And then with very sharp knives, that underneath layer of bark is peeled off, and the pieces are then taken and rolled, almost like making a giant cigar. And if you have a look at this photo that I've got here, you can actually see here that these fellows are stripping off the outer layer, the inner layer of bark. So this is the peeling process. And then the next step in the process is to actually make the cinnamon quills. And so here you've got somebody who's making the quills, putting them all together. And after that, the quills are then put up to dry. They put the strings from one wall to the other at ceiling height. And you can see here all the cinnamon quills that are up there drying, and after about 4 or 5 days when they're completely dry, they are then taken and they're put into these big bales. Now you've also heard me talking about cassia, which is the version of cinnamon that comes from Asia, and the botanical name is Cinnamomum cassia, and it's closely related, but it is the one that does have a different flavour. And it's quite interesting with that, because with cassia, they actually take the bark from the whole tree. And I have here a photograph of a cassia tree that I took in Vietnam. And that's what a mature tree looks like, but they're generally harvested when they're a lot younger. And what they do is they take off the bark from the tree, from the entire tree, and they cut it down. And what's interesting here is when you look at that, you can see how the bark is completely white, and this chap here is peeling the bark off the tree. That tree will then be cut down, and all that cassia bark will be dried. And the cassia bark can vary enormously. Get a load of this piece. This is that actual same piece of bark from the tree that has been peeled off and rolled and then dried in the sun. And remember, it was white when it was peeled, and look at it now. It's quite dark and it's extremely aromatic. And that's because during the drying process, the enzymes that naturally occur in the cassia bark turn it a very dark brown colour and actually create the volatile oils that give cassia its flavour. Now, believe it or not, I've just had breakfast and I've put cinnamon in my porridge. We always tend to use cinnamon in dishes where we want a lovely sweet flavour profile. Cassia we tend to save for when we want a stronger flavour, because you'll notice when you taste cassia that it has a slightly hot background note. Even if you chew a little bit, you'll get a little bit of heat on the tongue. So the idea is with cassia, use that when you want the stronger flavour, and when you want a milder, sweeter, gentler flavour, you tend to use the true cinnamon.